What are you working on today? Ah, starting trouble. No one likes that. We can get you set up for some stronger starts. You might just need a fresh charge, and we can take care of that free of charge. But if it is time for a new battery, we've got replacement batteries that'll fit your needs, starting at just $79.99. That's what makes us America's #1 battery destination.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Mom, meet Sarah.
From first-time Nana moments.
Yeah, welcome to Flight 101.
To annual girls trip moments. Your can't-miss moments are worth protecting against RSV. If you're 75 or older or 60 plus with a chronic condition like asthma, COPD, heart disease, or severe diabetes, you're at higher risk of landing in the hospital from RSV. And there are no prescription RSV treatments. Check eligibility and schedule your RSV vaccine at vaxassist.com.
So where should we go next?
Sponsored by Pfizer.
It's Wrangler season out there. Warmer days, cooler nights. Open roads, endless horizons. And you need to be ready in jeans made for the unpredictable. Wrangler, for the ride of life. Shop our newest styles today at Wrangler.com.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Brakes? We can save you 15% on that. We have OE quality Duralast brake pads and rotors in stock, ready for pickup or delivery. We also have calipers, brake fluid, tools, and anything else you'll need to do the job right. When you get Duralast pads and rotors together, you'll save 15%. It's just part of what makes us America's #1 brakes destination.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Save on O'Reilly Brake Parts Cleaner. Get 2 cans of O'Reilly Brake Parts Cleaner for just $8. Valid in-store only at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
You're listening to 96.5 The Fan from the Mission Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling Studios. This is the all-new 96.5 The Fan, your new home for Royals baseball. KFMZ-FM and KCSP-AM Kansas City and WDAF HD2 Liberty, an Odyssey sports station.
11 o'clock hour here on 96.5 The Fan. It's Cody and Gold. Alex Gold, Cody Tapp, Drew Nixon with you. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we'll get to the trash of the day. We also, in the Chiefs Red Half Hour, about a half hour from now, we'll talk about what one national columnist is saying about improvements across the NFL, including the Chiefs, and what kind of improvement is possible with this group, other than just the obvious, right, the wide receiver room. We'll get to that in just a little bit. You guys can hit us up on the Jay Southland Tow Service text line, 913-586-7965. Again, save that number. Replace the old number. We got the text line completely switched over today. If you send to the old number, we will never see the text. So, new number, 913.
Ever again.
586-7965. I thought you were going to go all Sandlot with me there.
Never.
Forever.
Yeah. It's the new text line, 913-586-7965. Yeah. I'm glad we like having the text line back. Although our internet's not working now, so if you'd like to communicate with us via the text line, we'll see it in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, you can actually text Cody directly. If you
My number is 816.
you can just direct line if you're worried about getting into the show.
People just send me ketchup hot dog gifts. I don't need that in my life today.
Oh, I don't know.
It'd be a terrible
That would
day
be
for
the
it.
least of your worries if someone had your personal text line. If I just said, hey, 8165. Whatever, I just went through and had people text you.
I saw you got into it with somebody on Twitter briefly yesterday. A small spat where somebody said something negative and you responded. And I was like, who's this guy? And he'd already had me blocked. So, you got me blocked on Twitter last night. I didn't do anything to that guy.
He already had blocked you before.
Well, I don't know. When I went to go click on his profile, it said, you are blocked by
You were
this
blocked
person.
before. What? I was in reference to the hot dog race?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it's somebody that saw the video, and Nate won, right? The hot dog derby. We established that earlier in the show. And he said, oh, the other station wins again. And
Wait,
I go,
but Nate works for us.
Well, that was my response, Cody. That was my response. I go, well, Nate works for 96.5 The Fan. He also referenced our old station name. I'm like, so that the guy, yeah. So
Did he block you?
I have no idea.
Because I think you got me blocked. I think I wasn't blocked, and he's like, screw Cody.
You don't need that guy anyway.
And I didn't even do anything.
You don't need that guy anyway.
Probably a fake profile.
That's also possible.
From the 913, if we talked about Cody trying to run Nate over the dugout railing, I did not try to do that, but Nate got close. If you think I can see well enough in that thing to take someone out in the dugout, you got another thing coming. No chance.
His kid was there. His wife was there. His dad was there. If you would have done that.
I'll say this. Had I known the dugout row was there, I absolutely would have put his ass in it. Okay?
Okay.
I
In
would
front of
have
his
done
family.
that.
Oh my goodness.
You know, so just to be clear, I didn't do it, but I would have. Had I known, I would have done that. Someone says, were you more devastated about Game 7 in 2014 or the hot dog race? The hot dog race hurt, man. I think Game 7's worse, but this hurt. Really hurt. The text line does appear to be working again, so good news for everybody. 913-586-7965.
So I was looking around a little bit just to see how people are feeling about the NFL season. More and more national publications are putting out some of their thoughts for the upcoming year. They're also getting a gauge on how people view certain quarterbacks in the NFL. And there was a conversation over on the Dan Le Batard show about quarterbacks basically in their prime. Which quarterbacks are still in their prime? Is Patrick Mahomes in his prime right now? We know what he's going for. He's going for a three-peat. He's going for his 4th Super Bowl this upcoming season. And he's going to turn 29 in September. So I think in just under a month now, actually, September 17th. That'll be before you can play a song on the show, by the way. So that day we might make an exception. We'll see.
Can I play just an old one?
Maybe that
Can I
day
play Happy Birthday Patrick one more time?
Cody's not allowed to have a new song on the show because he lost last night for a month. But maybe we can have the Happy Birthday Patrick. The question really is, though, do you view Patrick Mahomes fully in his prime yet? And I think he has to be. He's turning 29 here in about less than a month. So that doesn't mean that this is the last season. He is now in. Last year was the first year in his prime. That's the beautiful thing. We are still right in the thick of this thing.
I thought it was a really interesting question. And the results, by the way, were no for the most part. But yeah, it was a good split.
People thought he wasn't in his prime yet.
Yes. And I would say, if you really look at it objectively, quarterbacks typically hit their prime right around now, 29, 30, and it lasts till they're 33, 34. They're not usually at their best at age 27 because they learn new things. They understand defenses better. They've kind of seen it all by the time a certain thing hits. And unlike other positions in the NFL, the physical ability decline, just as long as you are a passing quarterback, aren't going to be negatively impacted. The answer is I think he is. And I think part of the reason I think he is because he's not a dual threat quarterback in the way Lamar Jackson is. But right now is still his prime ability to escape people via his legs. And I do not want to dismiss those as a massive weapon in addition to the other things he does great. Because he passes great, he sees the field great, he mitigates risk, he wins everything. But in addition to it, his athleticism does serve him. And I don't want to pretend like at 35 he won't be able to, be one step faster than every player who seemingly is chase him the way he is now. I think he's probably in it for a few more years.
That'll be a conversation definitely down the road. He will have to shift his game, but I think we are at least 5 years away from that because you mentioned mobility. I mean, the reason why this offensive line, even though we all agree the interior is really, really good, the reason why even last year when they were getting average or below average in certain spots, play from the right tackle or a left tackle, because Mahomes' sack rate, the sack rate on Patrick Mahomes is kind of crazy. It's almost unheard of right now in the league for someone that he's not a runner, but he's got ultimate athleticism, and he is so good at avoiding the actual sack. When he gets sacked, usually the opponent definitely earned that sack. Patrick Mahomes is so great at avoiding it, whether it's extending the play, whether it's just making a smart decision. So to your point, that is something that down the road, maybe that becomes more challenging. Maybe they have to adjust things, but that is a much... that is 5 years from now conversation. He is right in the middle of his prime, beginning of it, actually, I would say.
I would argue
last year was
nuts because
last year was the first year. To me, when you're 28, that's kind of your first year of being in your prime, and it goes till you're 33, in my opinion. That's just how I've always viewed it.
So you think he's in his prime, but he's in the early stages of it. I think for most quarterbacks, you're probably dead on. With some, though, they do hit their prime early. Like, we can't argue that Dan Marino wasn't in his prime his first 5 years in the league, when he was putting up bonkers numbers, doing things other people weren't doing in the league. And as he got to be like 33, he was wearing 18 casts all over his body. He wasn't in his prime anymore. That had gone past him. There will be, depending on how his next 5 years grow, some of it might end up being like, no, we already watched it. Like, I could see somebody be like, nope, we already watched his prime. He won 3 Super Bowls in 5 years and 2 MVPs, or 1 MVP. And 2.
But is prime statistical account? You know what I mean? Like, is prime the
No.
awards?
Just
or
the best version of Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion, not the awards.
I think each sport is different because in the NBA, people may argue a different range based off of what we've seen in terms of pure athleticism and training and everything like that. Not just that, hey, did you happen to rack up the most rings while you were in your prime? You would think that's your best chance to win them, but that doesn't necessarily always mean it's your prime, because I think someone texted in earlier saying, hey, in the NBA, people think the prime is like 26.5 to 30.
Different. You need your athleticism different than a quarterback. If it were a wide receiver, that age range is dead on. 26 to 30, prime wide receiver years. Running backs, it's 22 to 25. At quarterback, it skews a little bit older as a result of you kind of have to just know the game. The reason why I don't think we've seen his best year yet is I refuse to believe that we've seen the best version of Patrick Mahomes so far, because I do still think that there's a year of like, I know everything and I am still incredibly athletic. Like 2 years from now, I still think we might see like the absolute peak. Prime to me is like the bell curve. He's on the way up, but I don't think I've seen the dot in the center of that thing before it starts going down. I still think there's a year of knowledge and skill that all comes together and culminates in that like Tom Brady, Randy Moss year where maybe you thought you'd seen it all and you hadn't seen it all yet. I think there's the best year of his career still there. That's going to be tough because his first year ever, it was 50 touchdowns and 5,000 yards and an MVP. But, I mean, we would argue over peanuts if it was 43 and 5,100 yards and he won an MVP. We would still do the comparison game, and I think it would be fair. And maybe he'd have less picks, or maybe it would just look easier, any of those things, right? So I don't know that I've seen the peak part of the graph yet, but he's definitely in those peak range.
I also think his prime will whenever Andy's not the head coach, you could also argue that'll probably be about the same time that he's no longer, quote-unquote, in his prime.
Oh, man. Yeah, Andy's tough.
Because that's, 4 years from now, maybe, if you just base it off the contract. And that doesn't mean you can't leave early, doesn't mean you can't extend it again. But that, to me, will happen at the same time. If you're Andy, you're coaching Patrick Mahomes as long as you can in his prime. And that's what we're witnessing. I think that's exactly what's going on. As long as you're capable of coaching, you coach Patrick Mahomes as long as you can while he's in his prime. And that's what we're seeing.
If I were Andy, I mean, based on his age already and the life he has committed to the game of football, they'd have to drag me out of the building to stop coaching Patrick Mahomes. Like, they would have to drag me out of the building to leave him, especially his prime. Fine, 38-year-old Patrick Mahomes, maybe I've just lived my life and he's still great, and he's, Tom Brady was great till he was 45, so, like, maybe whatever. The father time undefeated might not apply to Patrick Mahomes because it didn't really apply to Tom Brady.
You'll almost be 50 at that point in time. Think about that. Your birthday's next week. You'll be almost be 50 by the time Mahomes is 38.
I'll be 0-10 in hot dog races by then.
Drew will be in his 30s.
I'm still waiting for that video, Drew. I need to submit for this thing. I want to be one of the early entrants to this hot dog
It just loaded. So
super
I'll
contest.
send
The
it to
internet
you.
was down. It's not your fault. Literally, the internet just stopped working for a while.
Coming up in about 5 minutes, we'll get to the trash of the day. Let's talk more about the Royals. We were at the K last night. There was a baseball game going on, it turns out, not just the hot dog derby. Seth Lugo, we already discussed his performance, and it was nice to see him bounce back and once again look like at times an all-star again in the last week of the rotation. But one thing we haven't talked about in a while is the implications of this season for long-term futures of certain Royals players. We already know Bobby Witt Jr. before the season got the record-breaking contract in Royals history, and thank goodness they got that done before the start of the season. That dollar amount has only gone up based on what Bobby Witt Jr. has done. But who's kind of next after that? I think at one point, and maybe you still consider it, Brady Singer part of that. His name is going to come up again in the offseason, I think, for trades. Don't be surprised by that. But who's next? I think one thing that I said before the season with Vinny Pasquantino is I want to see a full 162 or, however many games it's going to end up being that he plays this season because he was still coming off the injury. And to his credit, here we are August 20th, and the shoulder has been totally fine. He's had a great season. He's going to have over 100 RBI when the season is over with. He will now be the next guy that I'd be willing to entertain that with on the roster at the end of the season because I think it was too early to say, they should have done it, the first, right before the season. Well, they need to see him play his first full league in the big leagues, and he's doing that. He's going to do that this year.
I think that, so Vinny would be a obvious for me. Look at last night's game. This entire team has been carried by two things, the starting rotation and Bobby, Vinny, and Salvi. That middle of the order works. It works in a really big way. I cannot wait to watch Salvador Perez come up big in a playoff spot again, because last night you could feel the energy building, and then, of course, who comes through? Bobby, Vinny, Salvi. The same three people every time. So I would, in a hurry, pay Vinny.
Is he the only one, though? Let's be honest.
I'd pay Brady Singer.
Like, that's...
Lugo's not under contract in the long term. You got him for one more year, then he could be gone. Walker could opt out right now. You don't have Cole Reagans locked up. I'd also be interested in that one, so we can get it back around to him as well. And you do have some guys in the minors, like Champlain and some others that maybe you're interested in, but you don't have some bevy of starting pitchers coming up from behind. I think you have to lock up either Cole Reagans or Brady Singer. I think if you don't, you're taking too big of a risk on the future of your rotation, knowing that you went from 56 wins to already having 70 in a single year span because of the starting rotation. Don't make that mistake again. This is like Brett Veach with the offensive line. Never make that mistake again.
For a team that's having as great of a season as they are, because as you laid out, where things are at already in the rotation, and then you look at the rest of the lineup, I would say in this offseason, Vinny and Cole Reagans would be the only two players that I would have interest in actually signing long-term deals with at this point. Those are the only two. And it's weird because we all agree, like, this team has made great strides, and we talk about the core of the team. Well, Bobby's here. Salvi's not going anywhere. You could lock up Vinny Pasquantino. You could lock up Cole Reagans, and then you kind of build around them. That's kind of how I see it. Maybe early in the season, in April or May, you would have probably, some people would have said Michael Garcia, but unfortunately, that is just not the case. The guy's coming off the bench now.
I'd play that out, yeah.
There's no reason to do anything like that at this point. Michael Massey, unfortunately, with the back issues, you can't. You just can't.
And you got quite a bit of control left on him.
And you do. So the only answers are Vinny and Cole Reagans. From an off-season contract to me. I know Brady's a candidate for it. I wouldn't do that. I would potentially trade him in the offseason.
Why is everyone still like so ready to move on from Brady Singer?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we've defended a little bit based off of this particular season. I think criticism of him this year has been ridiculous. He's still, if you compare him as a number 3 starter to anybody else in baseball, he's one of the best, if not the best. So it's not so much that. It's just I don't think the Royals are paying 2 of the guys, I guess, and I would choose Reagans over him.
Especially because they're paying Lugo and paying Waka, but they're not going to be paying those guys for long. Lugo he's opting out after 2 years, unless it completely falls apart next year.
Waka, who knows? I don't know what he's going to do at the end of the year. It's kind of a weird spot.
He's been, he's been underrated. If Waka could get more, if this is the numbers he's going to put up for an entire year, so he's probably gone too. Like, I don't want to restart in the rotation where it's, okay, Reagans and Marsh, obviously, right? He'll be in the rotation. He will have built up his pitching. So it's Reagans, and it's Lugo, and it's Marsh, and then it's who 4-5 again?
Bubic or Kyle Wright?
I don't want to, and maybe Kyle Wright, maybe Bubic, maybe Champlain, who I'd mentioned earlier, some of the other AAA guys. Or another free agent if you go back there, because then Walker
right now
opts
their major league scouting has been pretty damn good.
They've been finding part of you thinks that Kyle Wright's just going to work because the way they've been finding pitchers lately.
I mean, we know about Urseg, but even like on a veteran, not a long-term option, but looking at Paul DeJong, like last night. More power. We know the power's there, but like he's already helping them win games, but he's gonna come up with a huge moment in September, or maybe it's on October. You can just kind of sense that from him. So when it comes to major league scouting right now, they've hit on it. The one right now that's a wild card and still has team control we don't know yet is Hunter Harvey. The story's not finished on him. Let's see what he's like when he gets back from injury the rest of in September, but then also next year we'll ultimately decide that. But other than the question mark around the Harvey trade right this second, in the last calendar year, can you really tell me a trade they've made where it hasn't worked out under this new regime?
No.
There isn't. Harvey's the question mark right now. We just don't know yet.
Yeah, and if he helps them in a playoff series, this is going to be the Kadarius. Hunter Harvey's going to end up being the Kadarius Toney situation where he won't matter for the regular season. They'll find their way in the postseason. Then Hunter Harvey will come and strike out 1, 2, 3 in an order in a 7th inning in a playoff series, and we'll be like, well, guess we can just erase that for a little bit. Problem solved, everybody. Sure. I can't believe they put Schreiber in there last night. Game one, first way back from the IL.
Like
they're
that,
like,
though.
Come on in, Schreiber.
I kind of like that. Now, look, we know how this game is played, that if he would have struggled and given up, everybody would have said it was a terrible decision. But at the same time, I kind of like throwing him right back in. He's a veteran in this league. It's not like he's not a young player. He's a vet. and he's healthy. Let's get him back in there. You didn't have Urseg, I don't think, available last night based on the pitches the night before. Certainly not for more than an out. And
I thought if like bases loaded, bottom of the eighth, down 3, let him pitch to one guy. Sure, I was kind of feeling that,
but you saved the bullpen. You used what, Schreiber and Bubic last night. That was it.
No, it's perfect.
So
now Urseg can come back tonight
if you need it. And hopefully you don't. Hopefully you just blow out the Angels. You got Cole Reagans on the mound tonight. We just mentioned the last rotation, time through the rotation, how they've all looked. So we'll talk more about that in the noon hour as well, right here on 96.5 The Fan.
Trash of the day.
All right, let's get to it. This takes us to a small town in a mayor's
I thought you were going to
decision.
play a video clip of the hot dog derby or something.
Well, that was...
This is way better.
For you it might have been trash.
I thought for sure I was getting set up.
For you, it might have been, but for Nate, it was a great race. No, we're going to Georgia for this one. Thompson, Georgia. He's a mayor of a small Georgia town, been indicted on charges. This was pretty bizarre. Illegally left a bottle of gin in a ditch. And you're like, okay. But it was for a state prison work crew. You're not allowed to do that.
Oh.
Yeah. He faces felony charges on furnishing prohibited items to inmates. So basically, it says that the 52-year-old mayor drove to a store on June 3rd, bought a bottle of Seagram's extra dry gin, left it in a ditch along Georgia I-50, or Georgia 150, in Thompson, in the path of a work crew of state prisoners from the Jefferson County Correctional Institution.
Just working outside, doing labor. They can't have a little.
The mayor
can't have a little drink.
The mayor wanted to give the inmates a little drink while they're out working on the highway. That is not allowed.
Good for the mayor. You know,
I mean,
once again, I'm going to encourage illegal behavior because big deal.
I mean,
now I will say this. I mean, he can't speak to like maybe those people who are in there for addiction issues. So I can't. That part's probably a little bit concerning from like a very serious standpoint. But generally speaking, guy has a little gin while he's working on the highway. That seems okay. Would you take any of those jobs if you were in prison? Like any of the jobs that are like outside?
Yeah, I think everybody would.
Yeah.
You want to get out of the
12
jail
hours
cell.
and 110 degrees today picking up trash. You're like, sold.
Yeah,
Dude, I can't sit in that jail all day.
I think, don't the people, quote unquote, with good behavior get those kind of jobs? The ability to,
I believe so.
If you're nonviolent, obviously they're not letting someone that's violent out there on the. I don't.
Do you think you would qualify under the good behavior clause?
I would hope. Although in this scenario, I would already be in prison for doing something wrong.
So you did some bad behavior.
So there would already be
maybe you were
that.
falsely accused. You never know.
True. Yes,
that does happen sometimes.
That does happen. Yes, it does. Yes,
you never know. So
this mayor was just trying to help the inmates out. Except now he's gonna possibly be heading behind bars.
They're gonna put him in jail for giving him some gin.
He has felony charges.
Felony? It's a felony to give someone some gin on the side of the road?
If you give prohibited items to inmates, that's a felony. Like if you were to try to smuggle in something to a jail, it's no different. I think is what they're saying. It's the same thing as if you were trying to give an inmate something in prison when you visited them or something.
Like if I try to put like a nail file in a cake, like an old movie scene, huh? Is that what we're talking about?
Sure.
I mean, I guess. Doesn't feel like we need to put the guy in jail
he was
Just
released.
give him a fine or whatever.
He was released on $5,000 bond or bail.
He was the mayor. The mayor, you said.
The mayor of a very small town. What do you think the population? Sorry.
Of Thompson?
5,000?
Georgia.
I don't know.
5,700.
6,800 as of 2020. Looks like.
This poor guy, man.
Thompson is a peaceful town with friendly residents. The people of the town know how to come together when it's time to celebrate.
Apparently, a friendly mayor.
Yeah.
Overly friendly.
That is the trash of the day.
He just, neighborly. I mean, you could just look like a Gatorade or something if he was thinking they needed
water.
a drink.
Or water.
Yeah.
Cold bucket of ice.
Anything else.
Anything but the alcohol. And I think that was the problem.
Yeah, that's probably true. Anything
non-alcoholic.
How do they know?
Honestly, though, how did they know it was him?
Juice.
How do they know it was him, though?
He didn't leave a note or anything.
Like he left the bottle in the ditch. I'm assuming an officer out with the inmates found it. But how do they know it was him?
They probably interrogated.
It's such a small town. They know only one person bought a bottle of Seagram's extra dry gin that day.
No, they probably interrogated the inmates and were like, "Look, who sent this?" Because. And one
and
of them
busted the mayor. He was just trying to get you some booze.
Well, maybe I don't know. Maybe they were interrogated and they were like, "Look, who sent this to you?" And they were threatening.
There's rule number one: don't snitch.
Look, dude, the mayor sent it my way. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how they knew it was him. Anyway, that's the trash of the day. Up next here on 96.5 The Fan, we get to the Chiefs Red Half Hour. What one national columnist is saying can improve for the Chiefs. And we'll talk a little bit more about Rashee Rice and the role he could have in 2024.
This is Cody and Gold on your new home for Royals baseball. 96.5 The Fan. Brought to you by Heartland Men's Health, the leader in men's sexual health. Thousands of men have been successfully treated for low T, ED, and more, all with discretion and compassion. Make your appointment at heartlandmenshealth.com.
MD Anderson Cancer Center is again ranked #1 in the nation for cancer care by U.S. News & World Report's Best Hospitals rankings. Our physicians treat more types of cancers in a day than many see in their whole career. This unmatched depth of expertise, combined with our groundbreaking discoveries, gives our patients access to the most innovative treatment options. Learn more at mdanderson.org.
It's back to school time and fall is right around the corner. That means you're going to want to look and feel your best when you're getting ready to do all of those fall activities. In fact, for the first time in years, I feel great, and I'm happy to say that I look and feel wonderful because of the folks over at Supplement Superstores. But it wasn't like that a year ago. I was sluggish. My workouts weren't great, and I was carrying around extra weight. I'm thinking to myself, I got to lose some weight. So I stopped by Supplement Superstores and told them I wanted to lose about 10 to 15 pounds. They said, no problem, we can handle that. 9 months later, I'm down 30 pounds. There isn't a day that goes by where someone doesn't tell me how great I look, and I love them for it. I'm taking the Flashpoint Complex. It's a refreshing drink in the morning that gives me sustained energy all day long, and then a refreshing drink at night that helps me recover and get the best sleep of my life. So stop into any of the 8 Kansas City area Supplement Superstores. Tell them I sent you. You'll get 20% off the Flashpoint Complex. Supplement Superstores, when you're ready to feel your best.
Round up your crew and head over to Twin Peaks for the freshest new menu additions. Spice up your wing order with our new sauces featuring the chicken tikka or spicy chili crisp. Or try our new take on our famous flatbreads with the backyard barbecue brisket or chicken tikka. Can't decide between a quesadilla or tacos? Grab the Queso Birria tacos featuring our in-house smoked brisket with birria broth for dipping. Twin Peaks. Eats, drinks, scenic views.
Some people like the idea of cutting out real estate commissions by selling their homes as independent sellers, and it could be tempting. But what those independent sellers miss out on is the tens of thousands of extra they could have made by working with a professional, investing in an expert to help you. And that expert locally is Dawn Sharp and her team. Contact the only agent I would trust if I needed to sell my home. It's Dawn Sharp with Sharp Homes Team, brokered by Epic Realty. She has over 200 5-star Google and Zillow reviews. Visit them at homesforsaleInKC.com.
Touchdown, Renner! Almost Andy Reid here. You know, a few years ago, my wife surprised me with tickets to a Halloween ball. And guess what? That night I discovered a new passion. Now I've added to that passion, cheering on the greatest team with the greatest garage door company of all time. Renner offers top-notch repair services, new doors, and LiftMaster openers. It's the perfect 3-peat forward and back, R-E-N-N-E-R with Renner. You'll stay on the championship track. Visit RennerDoor.com.
It's Wrangler season out there. Warmer days, cooler nights. Open roads, endless horizons. And you need to be ready in jeans made for the unpredictable. Wrangler, for the ride of life. Shop our newest styles today at Wrangler.com.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Starting trouble. No one likes that. We can get you set up for some stronger starts. You might just need a fresh charge, and we can take care of that free of charge. But if it is time for a new battery, we've got replacement batteries that'll fit your needs, starting at just $79.99. That's what makes us America's #1 battery destination.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
It's Wrangler season out there. Warmer days, cooler nights. Open roads, endless horizons. And you need to be ready in jeans made for the unpredictable. Wrangler, for the ride of life. Shop our newest styles today at Wrangler.com.
You're in hot water, mister.
What'd I do?
I told you months ago our utility bills were getting higher because of that old outdated tank water heater.
Maybe it's time we finally switch to a Navien tankless. Learn about Navient's high-efficiency tankless water heaters, endless hot water, all while helping you save on your energy costs.
Hey, look at this. Our utility bill is lower since we got the Navient tankless water heater.
Who's in hot water now?
We are, all the time.
Learn more at tanklessmadesimple.com.
Hi, welcome to Staples.
Hi, my son's teacher emailed his back-to-school list. He needs crayons and a comp book for every subject.
Okay, no problem. With Staples Hot Deals, you'll find super low prices on hundreds of items for back to school.
Oh, now they're saying he needs folders and glue.
You got it.
And markers?
Of course.
Oh, geez.
Can we get a cart, please?
Save big on back to school with Staples Hot Deals. Right now, 24-pack Crayola crayons and comp books are only 50 cents each at Staples. Ends 8/24, in-store only, limit 10.
This is the story of the one. As a warehouse manager, her job is to transform chaos into clarity and to see patterns where others see problems. Luckily, she's got a partner who shares her perspective. Grainger offers over 1 million industrial-grade products, backed by real-person support and in-depth online resources, so she can tackle every task with precision and turn potential setbacks into streamlined success. Call clickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This report brought to you by Floor & Decor. Unbeatable prices, unmatched in-stock selection.
Floor & Decor has more styles of laminate, vinyl, tile, wood, and stone for anyone looking for the right look at the right price. Your next beautiful space is at Floor & Decor.
Floor & Decor. Unbeatable prices, unmatched and in-stock selection.
Welcome in to the Chiefs Red Half Hour. Every day at 11:30 with Cody and Gold on your new home for Chiefs football. 96.5, The Fan.
And you can hit us up on the J Southland Tow Service text line, 913-586-7965. That's 586-7965, the new text line. It is fully up and running. The old number, we will never see your text again. So please put in the new number, 913-586-7965. That's the text line. It's also the phone line if you want to chime in at some point. We do have our Guillotine League coming up, and I believe Drew is finalizing the invites. Those were sent out last week, but trying to catch up with some people.
We are getting there, yes.
And we're almost full. If for some reason by Thursday somebody doesn't actually fill a spot, we'll reach out to those of you that entered last week, and we'll fill it that way.
Find a new person.
But we'll start our fantasy football segments with Charge here in next week, as a matter of fact. And we'll get going, man. I had some other friends texting me. They're like, hey, are you getting our fantasy football league set up and go? It's that time, man. Everybody wants to start talking fantasy football again, and we certainly will.
Can you reactivate so I can go check it out, that kind of thing?
Oh, yeah. That's exactly what it is. Any rule changes, any adjustments, all that kind of stuff. Everybody's in the same boat when it comes to that. One thing that was interesting, as you're starting to see more preview pieces for the start of the season, is everybody's going through, like, what team could improve the most? What team could all of a sudden go the opposite direction and all of a sudden be a major disappointment? So Bill Barnwell over at ESPN put out his 5 NFL teams that are most likely to improve. And, okay, he lists the Chargers, who were 5-12 last year. He lists the Patriots. He lists the Commanders. He lists the Cardinals. He also put down the Chiefs. And so you're probably saying, well, improve. They won the Super Bowl last year. And then you're saying, well, he must mean just the wide receivers, Cody. He must mean the wide receiver rooms. Duh, that has to improve, like we've all talked about. But he brought up one other angle that probably hasn't been discussed enough of the improvement aspect, and that is turnovers. And not forcing them just only, but also the offensive
Just being
mistakes.
bad at them together.
So here was a snippet of the article. He said, quote, Patrick Mahomes and company actually lost the turnover battle in 9 of their 17 games. They went 4-5 in those matchups, right? And they managed the 7-1 record in the games in which they tied or won the turnover battle. It's that simple, right, man? Win or tie the turnover
Especially
battle.
for a team as good as the Chiefs.
They lost the turnover battle only once during their 4 playoff games, and that was the road win against the Bills, and that was, of course, the McCole Hardman fumble away would-be touchdown. And overall, Patrick Mahomes under center, between 2018 and 2022, the Chiefs trailed their opponent in turnover margin 26 times, which was the 4th lowest rate, and that amounts to about 5 games, one about every 5 games per season. And they were 15-11 during that stretch. So it's so simple. You hear coaches, whether you're in high school or whatever.
They're a 500 team when they lose the turnover battle. They are a 90% win team when they don't. And last year, they gave the ball away Kadarius Toney in particular, but the whole damn team gave the ball away like they didn't care about it, respect it, even want the damn ball at times.
It's such a basic thing. Every coach at every level preaches that, like, you win the turnover battle and you got a great chance to win the game, kind of. But it's true. And even for this team, so that's a good area to improve that's not discussed as much. We all know, hey, have the deep threat of Xavier Worthy, have just a better wide receiver room. That's going to make this team better. Can they be a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense in the same year? They're going to improve. But part of that equation of suddenly being a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense is, well, just don't turn over the ball as much. And if they're able to force some more turnovers, it all balances out.
I think yeah, it really does. And I understand that turnovers they're not as unpredictable as touchdowns, right, from like a fantasy perspective. Teams that are good at taking the ball away are consistently good at taking the ball away. I think last year, and this is what was so surprising about the article, I'm like, teams who can improve the most. And I was like, the Chiefs? They won the Super Bowl, Bill. You're familiar with that, right? And that wasn't it. His problem is not that they won the Super Bowl. They absolutely did that, and he was right in pointing out where they could be even scarier for the rest of the league. When I go back and look at where their turnover issues exist, Kadarius Toney, like the drops, the fumbles, the self-imposed mistakes, those players aren't on the team anymore. A huge chunk of them aren't here anymore. Now, they do still have to find a way to get the damn ball. They are not good at getting interceptions. I think Trent McDuffie has probably taken it as a personal emphasis of pride this season to get his first ever interception and to be one of those guys. It's the only missing part of his game. He doesn't take the ball away in the air. He does force fumbles. So I don't want to just take away any ability to get a turnover. He's good there. And when they get, even though they've been a heavy sack team, and they have, ranked in the top 3 each of the last 2 years, they're not strip sacks. So I don't know what it is about the turnover specifically last year, but they were just bad across the board.
I'm sure you saw the numbers in this article from Bill Bardwell. That was really interesting how he laid out just the crapshoot aspect of it. You were highlighting forcing turnovers and all that, but also just like maybe they got some bad luck on recovering those.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so here was the numbers. 43 fumbles in Chiefs games last year. They only recovered 18 of them.
Yeah.
And that's
below, and those they really do consider those 50-50 shots.
That was below 42% recovery, which was the 4th lowest of any team. Now in the postseason, magic happens again. The Chiefs recover 13 of the 18 fumbles, Cody, which was 72% of the fumbles they recovered. So the ball bounced the right way for them in the postseason. The rest is history. They go on to win the Super Bowl. I know it's not just that simple, but think about the difference in that.
But that's
42% versus 72% in the regular season.
So it might seem small, but let's just say that those fumbles equated for 4 more games in which they were even in the turnover differential. Well, based on everything we've learned about the Chiefs over the last 4 years, if they are even in the turnover differential, they're winning 85% of those games. There'd have been 2 more regular season wins, they'd have been the number 1 seed. I mean, it's just like, it is that simple. If you're asking yourself, can the Chiefs be even better than they were last year? The obvious answer has been yes, because of the receiver unit alone. But if both of these things start going in a direction that they're supposed to go, like Toney doesn't let the ball go through his hand multiple times and turn into an interception or fumble it on a return, well, then we're having a very different conversation in which this team could do historically great Chiefs things. If the turnover margin regulates itself, and they are as good in the wide receiver unit as they can be from an improvement standpoint, there's no reason this can't be like a 1 to 2 loss team. Maybe I don't want to say undefeated, but like there's no reason they couldn't be that.
Sure.
No, look, I'm talking about the dream scenario.
Yeah.
Everything's going right. Everything's going the way it's supposed to. No injuries happen that set you back further than maybe like the Hollywood one in the early stretch of the season. But these are not like, I'm not saying, the Jet, or not the Jets. Let's think of a bad team. The Giants would be really good if Daniel Jones just turned into Patrick Mahomes tonight. I'm talking about things that can actually happen at least.
I hear you. Yeah, the turnovers is going to be, especially the first 2 weeks of the season. Like, we acknowledge that you look at the schedule, and I heard Nate yesterday, I think it was, on with Carrington, talking about, hey, can they get to 5-0 heading into that 49ers game and all that? We know there's games against the Falcons and Saints mixed in, but the first 2 out of the gate are the big tests right away to set the tone, and it's Baltimore and it's Cincinnati. And if they're going to win those 2 games, you may just think, hey, the Chiefs' offense is fully back and they're going to light up the scoreboard again. Or maybe that's where they're able to be opportunistic. They're able to actually get the turnovers, and if so, they get out of the gate 2-0, and they already would have wins against two teams that could be top 3-4 seeds.
Yeah, that's gonna click in early.
It sets you up really, really nice. On the flip side, of course, if it goes the opposite direction, it puts you in a bad spot from a seeding perspective.
Yes, but I mean, again, that goes one of two ways. Or if you go 500, then you're not in a bad spot.
But look, the Chiefs, other than the Hollywood Brown absence in week 1 and potentially week 2 and beyond, who knows? Right now, it looks like Rice is not getting suspended. So in week 1, knowing that the starters are not going to play in this preseason game on Thursday against Chicago, the Chiefs are really healthy heading into week 1 of the season. Last year, Travis Kelce did not play, we know, and Chris Jones, of course, was dealing with the contract stuff and did not play. So I don't know about you, just the way it currently looks, feel great about them heading into week 1.
Same, because even Hollywood's injury has a timetable on it. This isn't one of those, like, are we guessing, like, Clyde's injury, or are we guessing, like, some of the other ones, right? Is this a 4-week injury, a 6-week injury? Will he be back after the bye? They dealt with some of that last year, multiple times throughout the year. This has a relatively, not firm, but a relatively diagnosable time frame. I think we're probably looking at week 2 or 3 for Hollywood Brown. I think in the worst case scenario, maybe week 4. I just have a hard time imagining that, like what David Chow had said on Carrington's show, is even in the cards the more you talk to people. The bye, the IR, the only thing that would make me think that's even possible is the Chiefs have slow played some injuries. And the only way I think they do that, Gold, is if they were undefeated. They're not going to be like, if they're 3-0 against those 3 teams, maybe they take an extra week on Hollywood just to give themselves a little juice. They already beat Cincinnati in that case. They already beat the Ravens. They're already feeling king of the world for those first few weeks. They don't feel need to rush Hollywood back. But if it's normal status quo and they're 2-1 and they still need some more help on offense, I just assume it's going to come back that way.
Do you think this wide receiver room as a whole, though, where does this stack up? When they're all healthy again. So whether that's week 3, whether that's week 7, I don't know. But knowing that it's Rice and it's Brown and it's Worthy and what we presume to be locks right now, Justin Watson, McCall Hardman, and then, okay, fine, go further down the depth chart from there. This room, where does this one stack up for Patrick Mahomes? Because anytime you had Tyreek Hill, who is going to be in the Hall of Fame, who is a top 2 receiver in all of football, it's very tough to say that any other room can be better than that one, because I'll throw Kelce almost in that conversation as well.
Oh, he should be.
And he still exists here, and I think he'll have a nice year. But Travis Kelce 3 years ago was younger, and so better tight end presumably at that point in time, even though he's still really, really good. So I don't think, as much as it's such an improvement off of last year, it's not even close. Without even seeing results yet, it just is. I don't know how you can say it's not. I don't think like this is the best wide receiver room that Mahomes has had. Not when you have Tyreek Hill, but is there a chance that he could have more options capable of big plays than he's had? Like collectively? Yeah, I believe that's true. He had Tyreek Hill, but when has he had Hollywood Brown deep threat? He's got Xavier Worthy deep threat. He's got a possession guy in Rashee Rice that's really good underneath routes. Tyreek Hill did everything, but after that, there were some other guys who were a little more limited. Oh, and he still has Travis Kelce, who is a matchup mess for opponents.
I will tell you, it is not yet, because that would be too bullish to say that this is the best wide receiver unit Patrick Mahomes has had. Could be. It has the potential to be. The best year is 2018. Not just because of the numbers he put up, but because Tyreek Hill was at peak powers, Travis Kelce was at peak powers, Kareem Hunt, if you want to take the whole unit, Kareem Hunt was a pretty good receiving back, so he had some things. And then Sammy Watkins was good when he played. He played in 9 games that year.
Yeah, that's just the offense as a whole. We know 2018 offensively was the best offense that we've seen in this era.
But what I'm saying is, like, that receiver unit was great because Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and, like, sometimes Sammy Watkins came to work. This unit, it only were 2 things going in a direction for it to be his best wide receiver unit of all time. He'd still get a very good let's call it a 90% Travis Kelce compared to what he was then. I mean, it's not way down, 90, 95%. I mean, it's like close to maximum power, Travis Kelce. And while I do not think anywhere on this roster exists maximum Tyreek Hill, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, and Rashee Rice is a that's a better 1, 2, 3 punch maybe than Hill, Kelce, Watkins, because the drop off from Watkins. That's three people with a potential of 1,000 yards. It depends on what Worthy is.
Correct. It's assuming
he's
Worthy
a huge
is,
swing guy, and is this the best unit he's ever had?
That's assuming, yes, that Worthy is the deep threat that we all think he is, and that he's going to do that in his rookie season, and that's the hope and everything like that. That's also if Hollywood Brown only misses, if Hollywood Brown only misses the 2 or 3 games we think the closest anybody's getting to that is going to be 300 or 400 yards off that pace this year.
Let's say it's 2 then. Let's say 2 receivers equal Tyreek Hill. Let's say Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice are Tyreek Hill. I'm giving the speed of Xavier Worthy and I'm catching every ball. He had 87 catches that year. All right, so Rashee and Xavier Worthy or Tyreek Hill. Travis Kelce, I'm only getting a 10% maximum drop-off percentage in productivity based on what we've seen. Okay, so I've got mostly Travis Kelce. I got all of Tyreek Hill. Well, then after that, I still have Hollywood Brown remaining to use instead of Sammy Watkins. That's better. That's just better on paper. It is. So it just depends. Xavier's the swing guy, and I will admit that, and you're doing it more by committee than that. And I think people are afraid of that because we spent a huge chunk of preseason last year talking about like, oh my God, they could spread it anywhere. Where could the ball go? We never know. This year is different, and I'm not just saying that because you're like, you idiot, you're falling into this same trap. This is just better talent. We know that. We know that now. You know who Tony and Sky Moore, you know who all of them are now. You know, there's no mystery remaining. This is definitely the deepest unit by a mile, I think, in any point in Patrick Mahomes' career. I think it has the potential to be the best. I just can't call it that yet because we haven't saw the other one.
Seen it. Well, yeah. I mean, if Sky Moore makes his team, he's the, 6th receiver? Whereas a year ago, he was being asked to be what? The 4th? 3rd? Mm-hmm. You know, like McCole Hardman at one point in time was the number 3 receiver. He's going to be asked to, depending on when everybody's healthy, the 5th receiver, the 4th.
Yeah.
You know, Justin Watson was asked at times to be the 1 or 2 last year. He's going to be the maybe early in the season the 2 or 3, but eventually the 4. You know, I mean,
their
that's
5th
the
wide
difference.
receiver that year was Chris Conley. Would you rather have Justin Watson as their 5th or Chris Conley?
Justin Watson.
I agree. Or I don't know,
not by much, but yeah.
Yeah. And then Kareem Hunt that year had 378 yards receiving. Pacheco had 400-something yards receiving. So, I mean, now Kareem Hunt did do that in 11 games. So, again, the health thing is a factor.
Cody and Gold here on 96.5 The Fan. You can hit us up on the J Southland Tow Service text line, 913-586-7965. And yes, for those texting in, is this the right text line? Yes. I
responded
yes.
to some people. I was helping.
Yes, it is the correct text line. That is the new number, the only number you should know when it comes to texting us here at 96.5 The Fan. We kind of alluded to the back end of the wide receiver room there, and also we asked Dane and Hughes about it in the 10 o'clock hour. So now that we are entering the final preseason game on Thursday, who do you actually think gets cut between this grouping of wide receivers? Tony, Moore, Remigio, and Ross. Who's making the team? We know the locks are Rice, and Brown, and Worthy. I think McColl's in that group, and Justin Watson.
I think McColl's not in that group.
I think McColl has to be now because they're not even having Worthy do punt returns. So yeah. I think that's what saves McColl Hardman as well. Plus, no matter where you are on production for McColl Hardman, he knows the offense. He's the most experienced guy in that wide receiver room with Patrick Mahomes, so that means something. So I think those are the 5 locks. Do we think they're keeping 7 again? Let's say for the sake of the exercise, yes, and I tend to agree. So 2 spots are left. I think Tony's out. Has to be at this point. I think he's out.
Tony's the first one out.
He's done.
I mean,
so then it's
just get him out. I mean,
tell
me one reason why he belongs on this roster. A single reason.
I think they're finally done. He wasn't available much in camp, and he hasn't done anything in the one time he played. He had a dropper and a penalty or whatever on Saturday. So then 3 players for 2 spots. Moore, Remigio, Ross. I think Sky Moore is going to make the team after all this. I actually believe he had a better back end of training camp and preseason. I think he'll play a little bit here also on Thursday. But Remigio, Danon thought that maybe preseason 1 for that first game, not great for him. Maybe he's got himself back in the picture again with this past preseason game, and I tend to agree. I think Moore and Remigio, and then I think they'll see if they can get Justin Ross on the practice squad.
I think it's Moore and Ross. Tony is... There are very few things you can be critical of this franchise of for obvious reasons. They've won 2 straight Super Bowls. They're the best franchise in the sport. I think we are rightfully allowed to bury Veach for a day if he goes with Tony again. It's a joke.
They're not going to.
He has no business being on this roster. It would just be doing it to do it.
Also,
I don't know.
it is funny to be like,
squeeze value out of a third. Just don't do it.
Yeah, so I don't think they're going to. I'm laughing a little bit when he said.
I said for a day.
I'm
Single
laughing
24-hour
because
period.
I'm laughing because you realize you would just be burying him for the guy that was or wasn't the 7th receiver on the team.
Yes,
I mean, so it's
but I'm
it's a
offended
very
by That's how offended it would make me
Okay, all
for
right.
Kadarius Toney to be on this roster. I think it's Ross because he provides a skill set that
does.
the other guys don't, and I think that becomes appealing. It also helps him that he won the job last year. It was Remigio and Ross last year, and for 10 games or whatever Ross was on the actual roster for, Ross made it. So, like, I give him, and look, I could say the same thing about Toney versus Remigio, but Toney's fell out of favor. Sky Moore, I think they're just going to keep trying to squeeze some life out of there, and I do think that he screws up less than Toney. So, like, I think that works.
Yeah, so we're in agreement on Toney being cut. Sky Moore's making this team. The only thing I'll say with the Ross and Remigio comp from last year, remember, Remigio got hurt.
Yes,
so he ended
he
up on IR. So I don't know if it's like, hey, who knows what would have happened if he doesn't get hurt. I don't know. Neither one of us know the answer to that, but that's the only thing that needs to be mentioned. The question, Cody, I think, is just who do they think they can get to the practice squad? I'm with you that Justin Ross.
They've squeezed
Nobody can.
They squeezed Ross too before.
Nobody in the entire wide receiver room is better at contested catches than Justin Ross. That's a fact. That's his biggest asset he
for
provides.
a team that was not good in the red zone last year.
The problem is I don't think they really get anything from Ross on special teams. We know that's part of the numbers game here when you're talking about the 7th or 6th wide receiver. Do they think Justin Ross can make it back to the practice squad? They think it's more likely Remigio